It was a gray afternoon in the city, the kind that left the sky dull and heavy as if the clouds themselves carried secrets no one wanted to tell. Outside the glass tower of Vanguard International, people bustled in and out, tucked into expensive coats and sheltering beneath umbrellas held by assistants. No one noticed the girl sitting quietly on the edge of the valet platform, soaked from head to toe, her coat tattered, her shoes barely holding together. Her name was Lena Hale, and she had been invisible for so long she almost forgot what it felt like to be seen. But she hadn't come here to be noticed, she'd come here for one man, Damien Cross. He was a name most people knew. The world called him a genius, a billionaire, a ruthless innovator. Founder of Cross Tech, he'd built an empire from code and steel, and now, at only 33, he was one of the most powerful men in the country. Lena didn't care about his power. She didn't care about his money, his reputation, or the rumors that he had a heart made of marble. What she needed from him was something else entirely. And so, when Damien's black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up to the front of the building, gleaming and untouched by the rain, Lena saw her moment. As the chauffeur stepped away to pick up Damien's dry cleaning. She slipped forward through the sea of people and slid into the back seat. It was warmer than anything she'd felt in days. The leather smelled like safety, and for one brief moment, she allowed herself to exhale. Her backpack remained on her lap, clutched tightly like it contained her whole world, because it did. Every piece of her plan, every shred of truth she'd spent months gathering, sat folded between its torn zippers. She didn't know how long she'd have. Maybe a minute. Maybe less. But it was enough. The driver returned a moment later, noticing the figure in the back seat. His brows furrowed, confusion turning quickly into alarm. He tapped the window, motioning for her to come out. Lena didn't move. He opened the door and demanded, "Miss, what are you doing? You can't be in here." Still, Lena stayed silent, her heart pounding but her face composed. Within seconds, security appeared. Two broad men in dark suits flanked the car, their eyes scanning her from head to toe. She looked out of place, and they knew it instantly. One of them stepped forward and reached in. "You're trespassing, ma'am. You need to come with us." That was the moment she knew she had to speak. She turned her face slowly toward them, her voice soft but clear, and said the one sentence she had rehearsed 1,000 times. "Tell Damien Cross I know what his brother did." The air changed. The man's hand froze. His grip on her arm loosened. The other guard looked at him, unsure whether they'd heard her correctly. "What did you say?" the first one asked again, a bit more gently this time. Lena looked him in the eye. "I said, tell Damien Cross I know what his brother did." That was all it took. No one dragged her out after that. Instead, they radioed upstairs. Security didn't speak much after that, only watched her quietly, perhaps even cautiously, as if she were holding something dangerous instead of just a waterlogged backpack. Within minutes, the elevator doors slid open and Damien Cross himself stepped into the lobby. He moved like someone used to commanding a room, tall, lean, impeccably dressed, and sharper than the polished marble beneath his feet. His assistant whispered something to him, pointing toward the girl in the car. He walked forward without a word, every gaze in the lobby following him as he approached. When he stopped beside the open door of his own car, he studied Lena for a moment without speaking. His eyes, a piercing gray, scanned her face. "You said you know what my brother did," he said finally, his voice low but firm. "You have 60 seconds to explain before I have you arrested." Lena didn't blink. She met his gaze with all the fire that had kept her alive for the past year. "I don't want your money," she said. "And I'm not here to blackmail you. But what your brother did destroyed my family. And I have proof." For the first time, Damien looked unsettled. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was curiosity mixed with a flicker of doubt, like someone trying to remember whether they left a door unlocked. He turned to the guards and said, "She comes upstairs. No cuffs. No noise. Bring her." Then he turned and walked back into the building without waiting to see if they obeyed. They did. Lena stepped out of the car and followed the most powerful man she'd ever met into the tower he owned, soaked to the bone and carrying nothing but her truth. She had no idea yet, but everything was about to change, not just for her, but for him too. The elevator rose with a soft hum, its walls lined with chrome and silence. Lena stood beside Damien Cross, who hadn't spoken a single word since they entered. He stood still with the poise of a man used to silence, comfortable in it, in control of it. Lena, however, could feel her heart pounding against her ribs like it wanted out. She tightened her grip on her backpack, her fingers numbed from the rain. Every part of her screamed that she didn't belong here. But the part that had carried her this far, the part that remembered the night her world fell apart, held firm. The elevator doors opened to a private floor, unlike anything Lena had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, and everything gleamed: glass, steel, even the coffee table in the lounge area looked like it cost more than her old apartment. Damien walked ahead and gestured toward a conference room. "In here." His voice was curt, professional, but not unkind. She followed him inside, where a large table sat under warm lighting and a screen waited at the end of the room. Once the door clicked shut behind them, Damien turned to face her. "You have 5 minutes," he said. "Convince me why I shouldn't have you thrown out." Lena took a deep breath and placed her backpack on the table. She unzipped it slowly, carefully, like someone opening a vault. Inside were folders, worn, some crinkled by water, but organized with care. She pulled out the thickest one and slid it toward him. "This is about your brother, Trevor Cross," she said, "and a company called Valion Pharmaceuticals." The name made Damien's brow twitch just barely. "My father was a biochemist," Lena began. "He worked for Valion. He was part of a team that discovered a potential breakthrough treatment for autoimmune disorders, something that could have changed lives. But the data was buried. Not because it didn't work, but because it threatened an existing partnership Valion had with another drug company. A more profitable one." Damien's eyes narrowed slightly. "And what does this have to do with my brother?" Lena opened the folder, revealing pages of emails, financial statements, and internal memos, some redacted, some damning in their clarity. "Your brother was one of the key investors in Valion at the time. He wasn't just a silent partner, he pressured the board to kill the project. And when my father tried to speak up, he was fired. Blacklisted. We lost everything. He died 6 months later. Not from illness, from stress. From shame." Damien didn't speak for a long moment. He picked up one of the emails and scanned it. Then another. Lena watched his jaw tighten as he read. She could see the conflict playing behind his eyes, disbelief warring with recognition. This wasn't the first time he'd heard whispers about his brother's dealings. But this was the first time someone had handed him a paper trail. "You've had this for how long?" he asked. "I've been collecting it for over a year," Lena said. "I've tried everything. Journalists, lawyers, regulators. No one wanted to touch it. Valion is too big, too protected. And your brother," she hesitated, "your brother made sure anyone who tried was discredited or silenced." Damien sat back in his chair, eyes still fixed on the papers. "And what do you want from me?" "Justice," she said simply. "I don't want money. I don't want fame. I want what was stolen to be exposed. I want someone powerful enough to make this matter to finally listen." Damien didn't answer right away. He leaned back, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Lena could tell he was still assessing her, weighing her truth against his brother's shadow. Finally, he said, "Leave the folder. I'll look into it." Her heart sank a little. She knew that tone. The tone people used when they were brushing her off politely. "Please," she said, voice low but urgent. "I know people say things like this all the time. But this is real. It's not just about my father. Valion's still doing it, burying treatments, silencing scientists. If you help me, you could stop them. You could save people." For the first time, Damien's eyes softened. Just a little. He looked at her, not through her, not around her, but at her. And he saw not just a desperate girl soaked in rain, but someone brave enough to sit in the lion's den with nothing but the truth in her hands. "I believe you," he said finally. "But if I do this, it won't just expose my brother. It could destroy my family's name. My company. Are you prepared for the consequences?" Lena nodded, tears rising in her eyes but not falling. "I already lost everything. The only thing left is the truth." Damien stood and picked up the folder. "I'll start with this. Come back tomorrow at 9. We'll talk then. She hesitated, then whispered, "Thank you." But Damien was already reading again, already lost in the storm she'd handed him. As she stepped into the elevator alone, Lena didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long time, she believed it might be something better. Damien Cross didn't sleep that night. He stayed in his penthouse, lights dimmed, the city stretching out beneath him like a circuit board glowing in the dark. But his mind wasn't on code or companies or the markets he usually ruled with precision. It was on Lena Hale, the soaked girl who'd sat in his car like it was a confession booth, dropping a bombshell that now threatened to detonate everything he thought he knew. Her folder lay open on his glass coffee table, pages spread out like puzzle pieces. He'd read every line twice, then a third time. The data was messy but compelling. Her father's dismissal was buried under layers of NDA language and legal red tape. The Valion internal emails, how she'd gotten those, he didn't even want to guess, but they were damning. Most disturbing of all were the signatures on the bottom of several documents. Trevor Cross, Damien's older brother, the one who had introduced him to the business world, the one who was once his hero, then his rival, and now possibly his greatest liability. Damien had always suspected Trevor had cut corners, made shady deals. But this? Burying a life-saving treatment? Blacklisting a scientist? It was the kind of thing that made your soul itch. He couldn't ignore it. But he also couldn't act on it without burning down his family's legacy. Everything Crosstech had built, every headline, every investor's confidence, every partnership could unravel if the story went public. If he helped Lena, he'd be turning on his own blood. Still, something in her eyes haunted him. They weren't angry or bitter. They were tired, grieving, brave, the kind of eyes that had seen too much and still looked forward. By 8:45 the next morning, he was already in the conference room, folder closed, laptop open, coffee untouched. When Lena arrived, cleaner, drier, but just as serious, he looked up and motioned for her to sit. She did, folding her hands tightly in her lap like a student awaiting judgment. "I went through everything," Damien said. "You weren't lying." Lena exhaled slowly, relief written across her face. "I told you," she whispered. "I had my legal team cross-reference a few documents." Quietly, he continued. "They're real. Most of them, anyway. A few could raise eyebrows. Enough to start something." She leaned forward. "Then what do we do?" Damien closed the folder. "We expose it. But not recklessly. This can't be a scandal. It has to be a reckoning." Lena frowned slightly. "What's the difference?" He looked at her carefully. "A scandal burns everything down. A reckoning targets what matters. If we go about this smart, we can take down Valion without dragging innocent employees through the mud. We can reveal what Trevor did without sinking Crosstech and putting thousands of jobs at risk." "You're talking about protecting your company," she said. "I'm talking about doing it the right way," he replied. "You want justice. I want truth. We can have both if we don't rush it." Lena hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. What do we need?" "First," Damien said, standing, "we find the cracks Valion tried." Damien Cross didn't sleep that night. He stayed in his penthouse, lights dimmed, the city stretching out beneath him like a circuit board glowing in the dark. But his mind wasn't on code or companies or the markets he usually ruled with precision. It was on Lena Hale, the soaked girl who'd sat in his car like it was a confession booth, dropping a bombshell that now threatened to detonate everything he thought he knew. Her folder lay open on his glass coffee table, pages spread out like puzzle pieces. He'd read every line twice, then a third time. The data was messy but compelling. Her father's dismissal was buried under layers of NDA language and legal red tape. The Valion internal emails, how she'd gotten those, he didn't even want to guess, but they were damning. Most disturbing of all were the signatures on the bottom of several documents. Trevor Cross, Damien's older brother, the one who had introduced him to the business world, the one who was once his hero, then his rival, and now possibly his greatest liability. Damien had always suspected Trevor had cut corners, made shady deals. But this? Burying a life-saving treatment? Blacklisting a scientist? It was the kind of thing that made your soul itch. He couldn't ignore it. But he also couldn't act on it without burning down his family's legacy. Everything Crosstech had built, every headline, every investor's confidence, every partnership could unravel if the story went public. If he helped Lena, he'd be turning on his own blood. Still, something in her eyes haunted him. They weren't angry or bitter. They were tired, grieving, brave, the kind of eyes that had seen too much and still looked forward. By 8:45 the next morning, he was already in the conference room, folder closed, laptop open, coffee untouched. When Lena arrived, cleaner, drier, but just as serious, he looked up and motioned for her to sit. She did, folding her hands tightly in her lap like a student awaiting judgment. "I went through everything," Damien said. "You weren't lying." Lena exhaled slowly, relief written across her face. "I told you," she whispered. "I had my legal team cross-reference a few documents." Quietly, he continued. "They're real. Most of them, anyway. A few could raise eyebrows. Enough to start something." She leaned forward. "Then what do we do?" Damien closed the folder. "We expose it. But not recklessly. This can't be a scandal. It has to be a reckoning." Lena frowned slightly. "What's the difference?" He looked at her carefully. "A scandal burns everything down. A reckoning targets what matters. If we go about this smart, we can take down Valion without dragging innocent employees through the mud. We can reveal what Trevor did without sinking Crosstech and putting thousands of jobs at risk." "You're talking about protecting your company," she said. "I'm talking about doing it the right way," he replied. "You want justice. I want truth. We can have both if we don't rush it." Lena hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. What do we need?" "First," Damien said, standing, "we find the cracks Valion tried to seal. People who left quietly. Scientists your father worked with. Anyone who might talk now that time's past. You're smart, Lena. You got this far without help. Imagine what you can do with a team behind you." Her mouth parted slightly in surprise. "You're giving me a team? I'm giving you resources. A place to work. Legal backup. Whatever you need. But there's one condition." He paused. "You don't disappear. We do this together." She didn't expect that. Not from someone like him. "Why? Why help me?" Damien stared at the skyline for a moment. "Because I believe you," he said softly. "And because I should have seen this years ago. I looked the other way for too long. You reminded me of something I forgot, what it means to do the right thing, even when it costs you." Lena looked down at her trembling hands. She wasn't used to being believed. Or supported. For so long, she'd been fighting the world alone. But now somehow she had the most powerful ally she could imagine. And he wasn't just helping, he was standing beside her. Over the next few weeks, the most unexpected transformation took place. Lena, the poor girl who had snuck into a billionaire's car, was now working out of a private office on the 34th floor of Crosstech's headquarters. She wore borrowed blazers and drank real coffee for the first time in her life. She had an email address, a passcode, and access to information she'd once only dreamed of touching. But more than that, she had purpose. Together, she and Damien began rebuilding the timeline. Names surfaced: Dr. Kamira Lee, a former researcher who vanished from Valion's project 6 years ago. A lab assistant who had gone off the grid. A board member who quietly resigned and relocated across the country. Piece by piece, they found people who had been silenced and gave them a voice again. And all the while, Damien watched Lena work. She was sharp, focused, brave in ways he hadn't expected. He found himself wondering more and more about her past. What kind of girl grows up to fight giants with nothing but truth in her backpack? What kind of girl stares down billionaires and doesn't flinch, whatever the answer was? Damien Cross was starting to feel something unfamiliar whenever he looked at her. Respect. Admiration. Maybe even something deeper. The news broke on a Thursday morning. Quietly at first. A whisper on an independent journalism blog, followed by a surge on social media. Former Valion employees speak out about buried drug trials. The story included testimony from 3 former scientists, all verified, all citing pressure from upper management to abandon a drug that could have saved thousands. The evidence Lena and Damien had uncovered was presented carefully, names redacted where necessary, documents cleaned and verified. But the heart of the story was clear. Someone powerful had covered up the truth, and that cover-up was beginning to unravel. Damien had made sure Lena's name was in the byline. Not because she wanted fame, she didn't, but because she deserved to be seen. For the first time in her life, her voice wasn't just heard, it echoed. Within hours, traditional outlets picked it up. Financial analysts began whispering about Valiant's plummeting credibility. Stocks dipped, and then came the denial. Valiant issued a formal press statement calling the story unfounded, accusing Crosstech of what's next? You have more than a story now. You have a future. You're brilliant. You could run your own division. Start a foundation. Build something new. I'd back you. It stunned her, the sincerity in his voice. No one had ever offered her the world like that, not without wanting something in return. I don't know yet, she admitted. I want to make sure my dad didn't die for nothing. Damien nodded. He didn't. I promise. Then, softer, you've changed everything, Lena. The way he looked at her in that moment, it wasn't just admiration anymore. It was something warmer. Something real. And for the first time in a long time, Lena allowed herself to believe that maybe she hadn't just fought for justice. Maybe, without meaning to, she'd found something else along the way. The hearing room was packed. Journalists filled every seat. Cameras flashed. The world was watching. After weeks of rising pressure, official investigations had begun. The Valiant whistleblowers had all come forward, backed by Crosstech's legal team. Anonymous no more. Their names were now etched into history beside the girl who started it all, Lena Hale. Lena sat at the front beside Damien, dressed in a tailored navy blazer he'd had custom-made for her. She didn't look like the poor girl caught in a billionaire's car anymore. She looked like a force. But inside, her heart was still raw. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here for truth. The tribunal began with testimony. Scientists. Documents. Timeline. When it was finally Lena's turn to speak, the room quieted like the air itself was holding its breath. My name is Lena Hale, she began. My father, Dr. Peter Hale, was a good man. He believed science should serve people, not profits. And when he tried to speak up about what Valiant was doing, they took everything from him. She paused, her voice shaking, and now we're taking it back. She looked over at Trevor Cross, seated behind his legal team, stone-faced but pale. His empire was crumbling. Valiant's board had voted to suspend him. He would be indicted within weeks. It was only a matter of time now, but Lena didn't look at him again. She looked at Damien, because none of this would have happened without him. After the hearing, the press mobbed them, but Damien shielded her gently like a quiet protector. Later, back at Crosstech, they stood in his office, just the two of them. The storm had passed. The silence afterward was soft. Peaceful. You did it, Damien said. No, Lena replied. We did. He stepped closer. So, what now? She smiled. You once asked me what I wanted. And? She looked out at the skyline. I want to build something better. A non-profit that protects scientists. Helps whistleblowers. Fights for truth. Damien grinned. You'll need funding. She turned to him. I have a billionaire now. They laughed, and in that laughter, something unspoken bloomed. Hope. Trust. Maybe even love. What started with a broken girl sitting in the wrong car had become something no one could have predicted, a revolution born from courage, carried by truth, and held up by the most unexpected partnership of all. Sometimes, the world changes not through power, but through the quiet strength of someone who refuses to give up, and sometimes even billionaires get rescued by the very person they thought they were saving. If you loved this story, subscribe for more heart-tugging tales, where the underdog rises and love finds its way where no one expects it.